Wakey, wakey, Laser Dork.
Laser Dude!
Well, it's time to begin our journey. Your first review is on its way now. Opening 12 of the night.
Well, I guess there's no point in putting this off any longer. Welcome, everybody, to...
Hey. It's my job to open the show.
Sorry.
Anyways, welcome to our first review of Arkham Week.
Check my head, I guess the joke's on me. Whoa, I'm not laughing at the irony. Oh no.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Arkham Week. Not exactly how I envisioned it, but okay, let's roll with it. Today we are going to be looking at Jokers Asylum Volume 1. This book is a collaboration of stories, all written by different writers and all drawn by different artists, but all about different Batman villains. This volume contains 5 stories about the Joker, the Penguin, Poison Ivy, Scarecrow, and Two-Face. The only thing that connects any of these stories to each other is that the Joker is narrating each and every one. So I guess since there's no basic story in this, I'll just give you a brief summary of each story, then tell you how I feel about them. The first story is called The Joker's Mild. It is written by Arvid Nelson and drawn by Alex Sanchez. Joker's Mild revolves around the Joker, naturally, about how he takes over a game show and changes the categories from easy questions to questions about stuff like high-energy particle physics and obscure 17th century French literature, with the threat of death for a wrong answer. You know, you can be a real dick sometimes.
Well, I do try.
The second story is called He Who Laughs Last, and this one is about the Penguin. It is written by Jason Aaron, and the art in it is done by Jason Pearson. This story revolves around the Penguin, and how he comes across a woman who is stuck in the slaves trade, and how he rescues her and thinks that maybe she can influence him to become a better person. However, for someone like the Penguin, who's let evil fill his soul so much, he finds that it's impossible to turn away from who he really is. We also get some insight into his past as well. Now with the New 52 around, of course this isn't canon, but it is a good take on what his childhood was like. The third story is called Deflowered, and as you might be able to guess, it is about Poison Ivy. It is written by J.T. Krull, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right, and the art is done by Gilliam March. Now the rest of the stories in this book has Batman barely in it till the end, as the focus is of course more on the villains. But this is the only story that we kind of see this mostly through Batman's point of view. He sees these murder victims that are obviously done by Poison Ivy, but he doesn't know why she's killing these people. So we follow Batman as he tries to solve this string of murders and why Poison Ivy is going after them. But it's not just Batman, we also get to see Poison Ivy and her reflecting on her origin and how she came to be. I really like this one because you get to see from Poison Ivy's point of view. And it's not the whole, oh, Mother Nature, you're so evil, humans. You really get to see how she became who she is. Next, we have The Dark Knight of the Scarecrow. I guess you can guess who's that one is about. Yep, that's right, Killer Croc. It was written by Joe Harris, and the art was done by John Doe. I guess his parents just couldn't resist. In the story, we see Jonathan Crane, secretly in his spare time, besides fear-gassing everyone, has gone back to being a shrink, and we see him counseling this young lady named Lindsay. She is the unpopular type at her school, and she's invited to this party by the popular kids, figuring it's a trap.
It's a trap!
How's that? And sure enough, the girls are just inviting her there so they can pull a cruel prank on her. He encourages her to go, but sure enough, at the party, Scarecrow turns up, and he studies these teens one by one, and one by one he exploits their own deepest, darkest fears for his own sick, twisted pleasure.
Well, that certainly does sound like me.
So...
Interesting. Your scream interests me. Tell me, what do you fear? Do you fear your mother?
What? I mean, sure, cleaning days can get a little scary, but no!
Sorry, Crane, I leave you here for a minute and you're going to kidnap my reviewer.
The last story in this book is called Two-Face 2. Yeah, I don't really get it either. It was written by David Hine and the art was done by Andy Clark. The story involves Two-Face as he is one day visited at Arkham Asylum by a fireman who has been burned over half of his body, giving him scars very similar to Two-Face. This guy has been helping burn victims overcome their problems and become satisfied with who they are. And he says that he is there to help Harvey through these tough times of his life. Two-Face, on the other hand, sees the guy as smug, self-righteous, and ignorant. A fool who thinks that he can turn Two-Face into being someone just like him. However, by that logic, Two-Face says that he can make that guy just like Two-Face. The thing that I like about this volume is that since each of the stories are done by different writers and different artists, none of the stories feel similar. They all feel unique and their own story. That really comes out in the artwork. Every story not only, of course, has a different artist, but it also has a different art feel to it. The Joker's art is grainy and sketchy, giving you an uncomfortable feel, as you should for the Joker. However, compare that to Two-Face's art, which is more straightforward, contrasting the parallels between our main character, who is Two-Face, and this nice, naive guy who has no idea what he's gotten into. Poison Ivy's art, on the other hand, is very dark, but it's done so with purpose, because when Poison Ivy appears in the panel all green, she stands out beautifully, and everything else is all dull and dark, making her stand out. It's amazing. I will say that the design of Poison Ivy in this book is probably my favorite that I've ever seen for Poison Ivy in comics. Not that there's that many designs, but I'm just saying I like the art in Poison Ivy in this book the best. But then you got Penguin's art, which is dark and twisted and everything looks disgusting and dirty and grimy, which really fits this book, let me tell you. Every page of Penguin's art looked like the color was just like literally sucked out of every page, and it really works for that story. And then Scarecrow's, I didn't care too much for Scarecrow's art.
What did he say about me, you little insignificant moron? I will bury you alive!
Okay, calm down, Crane. We may be able to do that later, but for now, don't be afraid of a little bit of criticism.
No, don't get me wrong, I don't hate it. It's not horrible art. I mean, if you compared it to crap like Arkham Asylum Madness, then it would be like leagues ahead of that. However, compared with the rest of the art in this book, this is the one that falls short. I mean, it has interesting colors and perspectives, and when Scarecrow shows up, you really get some really cool designs of what he does to these teenagers, and he tortures them in real creative and twisted ways, and it's really kind of interesting to see these teenagers' greatest fears come to life for them. However, that being said, there isn't a whole lot to the art, especially for facial expressions. I'm not going to say that every character has the same expression on their face, but they're, like, look at some of these panels. They don't really even have a nose. And everything looks a little faded now. That sometimes works to its advantage, sometimes it doesn't. Once again, I don't think it's bad art. I'm just saying compared to the rest, that's the one that came up short for me. The best part of this book, though, hands down, has to be the Penguin story. There's no doubt about it. Let me just say, before I read this story, I really didn't care too much for the Penguin. I mean, it's not that I hate it. Oh, look, it's the Penguin. Well, I'm not buying this comic, or I'm not watching this episode of Batman the Animated Series. I wasn't saying that. It's just there was nothing for me to grab onto with this character. He wasn't menacing enough. It always felt like Batman would just beat the crap out of him over and over again, and he had no chance. I mean, what was he as a villain? I mean, I just saw him as a fat guy, going up against Batman, who knows 127 types of combat. Yeah, you're not gonna win. Oh, and by the by, the worst Penguin is not Danny DeVito, it is the Batman, because having Penguin that knows martial arts is just stupid. But anyway, I saw him as a fat guy, kind of a joke, not really threatening at all. And throughout this book, we see that kind of people thought of him that way growing up, too. He was horribly ridiculed and made fun of and got pulled pranks on him. Horrible, cruel pranks. Just to rise his hopes up and then beat him down. So if he sees of anyone looking at him as a joke or laughing at him, he will enact some of the scariest vengeance that you will ever see in a comic book. The best example of this is when he's taking this girl that he's freed from the slave trade, he's taking her on a date to a restaurant. It's a nice restaurant, everything's going well. He feels like he's almost given up crime at this point. He's feeling like everything's fine, everything's perfect. Why would I need to do any more crime? And then he hears laughing. And he sees the cook, and he's kind of looking the Penguin's way. Now, the Penguin has absolutely no idea if the cook was laughing at him. But in the end, it didn't matter to the Penguin, who then destroys this man's life for laughing. And so they ate their dinner, and they enjoyed their evening, and Penguin never said a word about the chef who laughed. But a few days later, that building had a new owner, and the restaurant was forced to close. Its employees all fired. And the day after losing his job, the chef found that his girlfriend has been suddenly deported to Romania, and his best friend arrested for child pornography, despite his insistence that he was framed. The day after that, the new tenant moved in next door and began blasting their stereo at all hours of the day and night. The landlord stopped taking his calls. The church he attended was closed for fumigation after a bizarre infestation of killer bees. The park where he liked to sit and read was annexed and bulldozed. And then the chef, who was a recovering alcoholic, woke one morning to find that a 24-hour liquor store had opened across the street from his apartment. Less than 2 months after he crossed paths with the Penguin, a night janitor found the chef in a bus station restroom where he had hanged himself. The day after that, the Penguin scanned the obituaries. I mean, wow. The way he systematically tore that man's life apart. Wow. And only for laughing, and he didn't even know if he was laughing at the Penguin. And that's when you realize how truly evil the Penguin is, and how he's not a joke. The Penguin, when written right, can be a truly evil character and more than a match for Batman because of how the way he manipulates the system and makes it so Batman can't even touch him because there's no proof left over. The second favorite story is probably Two-Face's, mostly because it's just such an interesting story. I mean, you got a man that is just trying to help, but he has absolutely no idea what he's unleashed on himself and his family. But more than that, this story has one of the most creative endings I have ever seen. I will not spoil it here, but let me just tell you that is one of my favorite endings in all of comic books. It's a very satisfying read. Any of you guys Two-Face fans, it's worth picking up just for that. I remember when I first started reading the Scarecrow story that I didn't really get it. I was like, okay, why is he with these high school students? Like, what on earth? Why does he care? Why is he here? But then I realized it was more just he is a student of fear, and a secluded place, many people, many different ways he can study fear. It's a prime opportunity. It makes perfect sense. I found myself rereading that story quite a bit. I found it really interesting the way Scarecrow, for lack of a better word, gets off on fear, how he loves it so much, and how he uses these, sure, they may not be nice high school students, but they're still just, but hey, they're not the Scarecrow. They pull a cruel prank, that sucks, but they're not using fear gas to torment people to realize their greatest fear right in front of them. That's the Scarecrow, and he's pretty awesome. This one also ends on a twist. It may not be as good as a twist as the Penguin's or Two-Face's, but it's pretty close. It's up there. And Poison Ivy's is also really fun to read as she takes her revenge on these people who she felt has wronged her in the past, and we also get a really good look at her origin. It's well written, it's interesting, it's really good. And it's just cool to see her take out these guys with her plans in real sick, twisted ways. but cool ways. And we get a deeper look at her origin, get a couple of views from her perspective on how she saw the scenario. In fact, surprisingly, the weakest story in Jokers Asylum is the Jokers.
What?
Now, let me explain.
You better make it quick before I start using your eyes as gumballs.
Don't be afraid of a bit of criticism, Joker.
Get out of my shot!
Now, it isn't a bad story, not by far. I mean, it's interesting. It has its own unique twist at the end that is interesting to see. It's a change. But compared with the rest, we don't get any insight into the Joker's head. We just see the Joker pulling one of his schemes, and that's about it. I mean, each of these stories is extremely well written, but the rest of them just add new twists on the character, new takes that make me respect the villains more. Where Joker is just like, oh, here's another Joker story. It's not bad, but compared to the rest, it's the one that is the weakest. I mean, Joker story is fun and it's interesting, but compared to the rest, it's just okay. But overall, Jokers Asylum Volume 1 is a great pickup for any Batman fan. I'm not sure if I would say it's for everyone. It's definitely a must-have, I think, for Batman fans. And for people who want to get into the villains of Batman. These are great takes on the villains. You get a lot of good stories and a lot of variety of stories. It's not just the same thing. And it's great. It's a great book for Batman fans or those who are thinking of becoming Batman fans. You got 5 really good stories about 5 great villains. What more could you ask for? So I'm giving it a... Hey, how can I rate this thing without my laser gun?
Oh, whatever, you'll manage. But I don't think the Arkham staff will be giving you that back since you did, of course, try to blow up a school bus.
No, I didn't. You just said that I tried to blow up a school bus. I didn't actually do it. Anyway, Batman Jokers Asylum Volume 1 is a great read for any fan of Batman or his villains or considering being a Batman fan anytime soon. And it gets an 8 out of 10 from me. So is this the best you got, Joker? I mean, put me in a padded cell. Oh no, I'm not gonna see anyone. Oh, no, the horror. I think these mattresses are even more comfier than my bed at home, so I think you're doing me a favor. So thanks, Joker. Thanks. This'll be a breeze.
Hey, Prisoner 99, your new cellmate is here.
Cellmate?
Hey! Who's this dummy?
Help me?
Well, folks, stay tuned because next time we're going to be reviewing Batman Arkham Unhinged Volume 1. See y'all later.
Riddle me this now and riddle me that. Does anyone really know the mind of the